Joni Mitchell, who is considered the queen of folk rock, also speaks of a spirit entity which has assisted her musical success. Time magazine reported, quote, she deeply believes in a male muse named Art, who lends her his key to what she airily calls the shine of creativity. Jim Morrison admitted of this experience. In that year, there was an intense visitation of energy. He said, I left school and went down to the beach to live. I slept on a roof. I met the spirit of music. Who was that spirit? He said, an appearance of the devil on a Venice canal. Running, I saw Satan. The material that Satan would communicate to Jim Morrison in Venice Beach would become the basis of the Doors' first two albums and would be far more powerful than anything that they would make subsequently to that time. Morrison said, I was living in this abandoned office building, sleeping on the roof. I just started hearing songs. I heard in my head a whole concert situation with the band and singing and an audience, a large audience. Those first 5 or 6 songs I wrote, I was just taking notes at a fantastic rock concert that was going on inside my head. Jim Morrison biographers in the book Break On Through point out that he was, quote, opening himself to be used and abused by any spiritual entity that happened to come along. The result may have been some amazing inspirations, but also a tragically restless and misdirected life. Incredibly, the same spirits that brought Mr. Mojo Rising, as he liked to refer to himself, up to power, also brought him down to destruction. These same demonic beings that used Jim Morrison's body as a puppet to influence the masses were later discarded as he would die only months after the death of Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. Jim Morrison admitted that he had to drink to silence the constant voices of the demons who were tormenting him. Frank Lisiandro, Doors photographer, stated that, quote, Jim drank to quiet the ceaseless clamor of the demons, ghosts and spirits begging for release. He drank because there were demons and voices and spirits shouting inside his head, and he found that one of the ways to quell them was with alcohol. Wilson of the Beach Boys said of himself and the other Beach Boys, quote, we were doing witchcraft, trying to make witchcraft music, end quote. Is it possible that Brian Wilson, the so-called musical genius behind the Beach Boys' music, was really being used by demonic forces like so many other rock stars? In terms akin to classical demonic possession, Rolling Stone magazine reported to Wilson, quote, Brian Wilson hears voices. They talk to him. They distract him, frighten him, confuse him. Right now, as the creative genius behind the Beach Boys' classic surf rock sound sits for an interview in his darkened living room, the Pacific crashing loudly outside his $1 million home. The voices are calling. His eyes roll toward the ceiling. They've gone blank. His brow is furrowed with thick worry lines. He is silent, gone. Rolling Stone magazine went on to report, quote, he looks up, jerks his head back and forth for a few seconds as if physically shaking away the voices. I wish they all could be California. Warner Brothers Records president Larry Warnker claims to have encountered at least 5 different entities that use Brian Wilson's body as their home. He said, quote, there are a lot of different people there, says Warnker. Quote, I've met 5 different people, end quote. It is apparent that Brian Wilson received many incredible songs from the spirit beings that have possessed him.
There's like this message that they're getting that nobody else tunes into. Some frequency that, we're just not able to tune into that they hear.
Does it ever get annoying, like when you're trying to go to sleep, like, shut up?
Yeah, I have that all the time.
Really?
Please stop.
In my room.
Wilson, who opened himself up to many demonic forces, stated, quote, we were doing witchcraft. I got a little too much into this tape called Fire. Then a place down the street burned down the same day we did the song. Wilson simply communicated music the evil spirits were giving to him through the Beach Boys. Rock journalist Nick Kent wrote of these voices inside his head. They weren't saying anything too distinct yet, just making this dark, ghostly murmuring sound back there in the lower recesses of his brain. He stated, quote, at one session for Heroes and Villains, he tried to capture this latest ghoulish sound, taking up squatters' rights in his head. It was the scariest sound of anything he'd created for Smile. But it wasn't as scary as the voices in his head were starting to insinuate. When Wilson felt uninspired, he would state, quote, I can't sing. I can't get those voices anymore. These demonic beings that would once use Wilson as a puppet would later ridicule him by stating, quote, you're gonna get it, you mother blank. All the voices in his head now interrupting his thoughts, forever muttering, quote, you're finished, you're washed up,
you've lost the plot, blank, and you've lost your mind. You played with God and messed with forces that can only destroy you.